All right. The Renaissance, the Inner Plague. The term Renaissance instantly sparks thoughts of literary progress, advancements in the sciences, and enlightenment. The Renaissance was a period of accelerated transition in which earlier trends moved more quickly and more decisively towards modernity. Soaking in all the rays of sunshine from Renaissance history has the tendency to divert us from the fact that people in this time were also confronted with trials, faced internal and external battles, and dealt with anxiety and depression. People in every generation of time have had to deal with mental ailments, and the Renaissance was no different. Renaissance herbals opened the door to understanding these issues, the commonality of them, the people's spiritual understanding of them, and the remedies used to counter these mental and emotional challenges. The people of the Renaissance had to deal with these mental ailments. They were no exception. In fact, the Renaissance may have presented unique circumstances which even fostered the spread of this inner plague, such as the loss of loved ones, financial distress, and the upending of life as they knew it. The unique challenges of the era set in motion an increase in the studies of medical remedies for ailments of all kinds. These remedies were compiled into books known as herbals. The vast majority of herbals from the Renaissance era tended to portray different plants and herbs as having bodies, either male or female. In addition, many were either accompanied with angels or demons. The Burlington herbal follows in the tradition of depicting supernatural powers as an explanation for illness and the means for cure. Herbals offer insight into the pre-modern mind and the way that the producers of these herbals looked at nature, sickness, and medicine. Many medical issues were seen as spiritual instead of physical. Snake bites, for example, were countered by herbs that were literally named fugodemonum, meaning to chase away the demon. Due to the nature of snakes being serpents, they represented evil and the devil. Thus, the venom of the snake was a demon that would overtake them if not to be countered by these herbs. In comparison with physical ailments and injuries being associated with supernatural beings, mental and emotional problems were also compared in a similar fashion. John Gerard heavily addresses these issues in the Herbal, or General History of Plants. Long lists of remedies are referenced in the index that help with the various symptoms of sadness and depression. The flowers made up into plates with sugar will comforteth the heart, and maketh it merry, quickeneth the spirits, and maketh them more lively. Ever since the beginning of time, the heart has been closely associated with the spirit and is the metaphorical center of all the feelings, longings, and desires of the human soul. Many circumstances can cause the heart to hurt, to ache, or to sadden, including many things that occurred during this time of revival and progress. Circumstances such as financial stress, the loss of a loved one, infidelity of a spouse, and health issues tend to be some of the more common triggers that affect the human heart and bring on the states of depression, sadness, and anxiety. One such situation occurred in the life of Johannes Reuchlin in 1506. After providing no small amount of money to publish his book, De Rudimentis Hebraeus, the project was a disaster and the book unsaleable. He was left with over 1,500 copies of an unsaleable book due to the unfamiliarity of the language, causing that no one would back up its stock. Such financial stress and fear of failure lead to anxiety and its cohorts of sadness and depression. It is imperative to note that the plague, known at the time as the pestilence, swept over the region like a wildfire in the middle of the 14th century and had recurring waves which ravaged Italy and other countries into the 15th and 16th century. It is impossible for the human tongue to recount the awful truth. The victims died almost immediately. In some towns, the mortality rate was as high as 60%. This led to many families getting broken up and lives getting upended. Modern studies show that depression can lead to physical ailments as well. This was also understood in the Renaissance era. The scene of the East, or the Italian scene, was an herb used to counter these issues. It was good against melancholy, cleaneth the brain and purgeth it, as also the heart, and is very good against old fevers and diseases arising of melancholy. This entry is particularly insightful in that it differs from the other accounts by providing understanding of the physical ailments that result from depression. Although Black Death is what comes to mind when we think of the sufferings and hardships of Renaissance Europe, it is essential to note that the plague of mental challenges in all its forms was just as prevalent at this time, if not more than in other times of history. This is a plague that doesn't come and go, that isn't contracted from fleas, rodents, or rotting flesh. but one that rages in the chambers of one's inner soul. The unique circumstances of the time provided renewed life to some, while at the same time stripped others of all that gave them hope.